Okay, so today we are going to continue the educational series on some things that I think are important for consumers to learn about. We're picking up a highly controversial topic: weight in the center of the baya, and when to use it, and what purpose does it serve. We have the folks from Benares who say that weight in the center makes the baya sound sweeter. They swear by it. A lot of people sell center-weighted bayas. Some of them say this is bad. There's no explanation for why this is good or why this is bad, which leaves for a very frustrated customer. So let's take a rational approach to this topic and start working. I have 3 bayas here that I'm working on, and I'll use all 3 as an example to display the bayas. Now, I won't take any manufacturer names. I won't take anybody's name in particular because I want to keep this educational and keep this controversy free. And the views expressed here are solely our opinion based on 4 decades of working with tablas. So what you see here is a baya, and there is no weight inside. And this is a very famous manufacturer sold primarily through Amazon. Now, notice the thickness of the ring. The thickness of the ring is more like 10 to 12 mm here, okay? Now, the second baya that I have again, it's a copper baya. This one is a brass baya that's been painted black inside, but if you look inside carefully, where I've sanded off a little bit of the bottom, you can see that it's brass. Now, this is a copper baya. Once again, this is pretty thick, 10 to 12 mm ring on the outside. You can see no weight on the inside. The third is again another copper baya. This has approximately a 6 mm ring on the center. You can see how thin this is. Once again, no weight in the center. Let's say you bought this baya. Do we need weight in the center or do we not need weight in the center? What predicates that? The number one thing is you take this and do the tip test, which is very gently push. This is what happens. Why is this bad? So what if the baya rolls over and tips over? When you're going in and modulating the baya, this is going to rock like crazy. And once it rocks, you are not going to have control, or you will struggle with the control, even if you press down hard with your wrist to control this, because as soon as there's a little pressure, this tends to tip over. So you go looking for rings that will stabilize it. The rings is not the solution. You have to do something here to stabilize this. Now, the reason is the metal used is pretty thin, and the metal is not adequately compensated on the bottom, which is what makes it very top heavy. You pick up the baya, you buy it, you think it's a good baya, but because of the weight on the top, this is making it topple so easily, and you start getting frustrated with it. We'll come to the solution. Now, you have this. It's a pretty heavy baya. Let me look at the weight of this actually. And this is about 3.2 kilograms. Now, the difference in this baya is that there's a lot of metal here. So it will tip, but you have to push harder. If you try to push regularly, it comes back. Push, comes back. Push, comes back. I'm using the same pressure as I did in this. And an example of what happens to this when the metal on the bottom is less, push, tips over. This, while not ideal, will work. No complaints. You can still work with this. Now comes the third buyer, where you have a 6 mm ring. And when you have a 6 mm ring in the center and you have good heavy metal, let's look at the weight of this buyer. This is a 6 mm ring. And when you have a 6 mm ring in the center and you have good heavy metal, let's look at the weight of this buyer. This is 3.6 kilograms. But the important thing is the weight distribution. Less on the top, more on the bottom of the metal, and a nice thick gauge of metal. You tip, you push, it just comes back. It won't tip over. You tip, you try to push it, won't come back. Does this need any weight in the center? Absolutely not. Ideal. When you're purchasing, unfortunately, this is covered with the skin, so you don't know what you're looking at. You can't tell. If you're purchasing new, I would suggest ask them. Anything 6 to 8 millimeter ring is fine. Anything more than that is not fine. It should be weighted towards the bottom without adding any additional weight. That's the ideal one that you want to buy. But let's look at our main problem child here, which is this one, which once again, you tip, it tips over. What do I do with this? Because you as a consumer have bought a Maya and now you're forced with this and you're struggling to play it as you're learning to modulate. This thing keeps rocking badly. Herein comes made up mold of lead. I put this mold in and center weight this. Now watch. Do the same tip test. I can go further. Tipping it. Nope. Rock steady. Tipping it. Rock steady. Does this affect the sound adversely? Absolutely not. So if you're of the opinion you should not use it, I would say rationalize why. Why should I not use it? Now these molds can be made out of steel. These can be made out of lead. I have a furnace where I make these molds and I use them so that I can actually salvage the customer's Maya and without having to purchase a new one or having to give this off to some other poor bloke who's going to go through the pain and suffering again. And we actually charge a minimal charge for this because the metal is expensive. There's labor involved in making the mold and making it adhere to this, making it good. Now, does this add weight? It does add weight. Are we cheating? No, we're telling the consumer that this is what we're doing. We give him a choice and the consumer is actually paying for it and he knows what he's doing. So overall, what happens is with this, now the Maya has become heavier, which is good. At this time, this is about 3.5 kilograms. Without this mold, this is about 2.2 kilograms. More importantly than the Maya weight, because you could play with a lighter Maya technically if it was not rocking as badly as this. What this is doing is this is adding stability. So here are my 2 cents on that center weight. It is needed at certain times. I don't mind it if a manufacturer puts it, unless the manufacturer was trying to pull a fast one on me and charging me excess for a heavier Maya by using this method. The consumer should be aware of how the Maya is made. The manufacturer should be very open and straightforward in advising the consumer what is being done. It's your choice. You as a consumer have the power to advise what you want to do, what you don't want to do. In this case, the customer has seen, he's agreed to this. We've made hundreds of these Mayas. We've repaired hundreds of these Mayas where we've put this weight in. Not a single complaint back. Does not affect the sound at all. You're able to, for about 20-25 bucks, salvage your Maya, which you thought was so problematic, and continue to using it. And this is very innocuous, stays in the center like this, does not move about because it's held in place, and it makes for a very good experience. So here we're turning this shoddy piece of work into a nice Maya that a customer can use for a lifetime. Thank you.